Hey TJ, what's going on? How is it happening? Evelyn, Rio, what is going on? Giving it a second here to kind of kick everything off and let everybody join. Alex, Nguyen, hope you guys are having good. Can you guys hear me all right? Everything okay from a sound perspective now? Jomar, what's going on, brother? Hello from Australia. Hello from Mexico. Hi from the East Coast of boring United States. Leonardo, what's going on, everybody? What is up? What is up? Awesome. Thank you so much. Looks like we've got a good amount of people kind of in the YouTube live already, so thanks so much. Hopefully you can hear me all right, and everything on the screen looks all good. Sorry for the YouTube video today. I think I accidentally left. I had the microphone in front of me on the YouTube video, and then it actually recorded from my computer. So the sound quality today in the YouTube video, I didn't realize it until afterwards. Kind of sucks, but is what it is. So sorry about that, guys. But outside of that, thank you for taking the time to join me tonight, and looking forward to covering a couple different things. And I posted in the Facebook group that I have. That's just a little small community. It's like 170 something people or so now. But I posted in the Facebook group before asking, and on Twitter too. But I got some good responses within the Facebook group as far as asking about a couple different topics, and a couple different people said some different things. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of these topics because I think they are good, and I would think it's probably nice to cover some of what you guys had asked about, guys and girls had asked about. So what is up from South Africa? What is up from Singapore? Hope you guys are doing well. So a couple different things. And one of the first things, I think this is a great question from Harsh, is how to determine a good time to pull out of a coin. And I think that's something that, quite frankly, when you are looking at pulling out of a cryptocurrency, you want to try to determine that, I think, really prior to starting the trade. So I think there's in a lot of cases two different ways that you can look at owning cryptocurrency, and it's short-term and long-term bets. Now, whether it's ICOs or whether it is other cryptocurrency out there, I think that when you are looking at things, short and long-term bets are the two ways to approach it. And either way, you want to have, before you buy something, you should probably, in my opinion, you should know beforehand whether or not it's a short-term trade or a long-term trade. And if it is a short-term trade, you want to have a profit percentage picked out. So let's say it's 25%, if it's 50%, if you're trying to make 100% profit, whatever it is, have a profit set in the short term that you're going to sell at or sell some of it at. And then if you want to keep the rest, then do that. But I think that's really important when you are looking at getting rid of a coin, is because if you don't have a profit, in mind, if you don't have a strategy before you buy, it's really easy to let emotions get the best of you. It's really easy to have something like today, maybe where more silly China news came out, and you see the price of, we'll pull up Bitcoin right now, but you see the price of Bitcoin drop a little bit here today from 4,300 down to 4,100. You get nervous and you didn't have a plan going into it, so you sell. That's not how you want to do things. You definitely want to make sure you have a plan going in ahead of time. So that's one thing. And then for long-term holding, from a long-term holding perspective, I think you want to know going in if it is a long-term hold, and try to prevent yourself from trading as much as possible. I think it's sometimes hard. I mean, one of the big things I do is, quite frankly, I have my crypto on a ledger, and I make it really difficult for me to get that ledger and to have access to the Ledger Nano S, so that I can't, if I see the market going nuts, I can't get the itch and start going crazy and then try to trade there. So that's definitely one thing from a long-term perspective I think helps quite a bit. So reading some questions, thanks everybody for these questions. They're all fantastic. A couple different things. So Sagar mentioned, and I talked a little bit about this in my video today, but what do I think about OMG, Civic, and Ripple as utility tokens, or do I think they are utility tokens? And Ripple isn't necessarily a utility token. I think Ripple is more of a cryptocurrency, although it's a little bit different because it's more centralized. There's actually like a Ripple company that owns the majority of Ripple and that have held Ripple back from the rest of a lot of people. I think there's only 38% or so of Ripple is released right now. So Ripple is different from a cryptocurrency perspective. It's not like a Bitcoin or a Litecoin or even like an Ethereum. But OMG and Civic are definitely what I would consider to be utility tokens, where there's kind of there is a Civic application, and by owning Civic tokens, you are gaining a specific utility on that. You're gaining a specific utility by leveraging that. Same with Omise Go OMG. That is another thing. 0x is similar. I see 0x mentioned here too. That's a utility token in a lot of respects as well. These decentralized exchanges too. So Evelyn mentioned, what do I think may happen to the price of Ethereum after the fork, a pump like Bitcoin had? Personally, I'm pretty bullish on the price of Ethereum right now. I think that it's certainly taken. I mean, we can kind of back things up. I'll pull up the 4-hour charts here. It's obviously taken a hit since it pushed up. Pretty much had an incredible run. Ethereum had an incredible run in the month of August, went all the way up to basically $400 and has since gotten crushed down from $400 to $350 to $280, back up to $340, and now down to right below $300 or so. So I think, for me personally, I'm very bullish on Ethereum long term. I think it is one of the most interesting, if not the most interesting, cryptocurrency and project around, just because the overall opportunities with it and how strong the adoption is, how strong the community is. And I think that's a huge, huge thing, is people underestimate. A lot of people right now kind of investing blindly into some of these cryptocurrencies that have very minimal adoption, or they don't even have a project launch yet. It's not even the alpha or the beta phase. So that's something that I think Ethereum is pretty much the most widely adopted cryptocurrency outside of Bitcoin, but it has so many other utilizations, so many more utilizations than Bitcoin does. And I think you can have a portfolio consisting with Bitcoin and with Ethereum. You don't have to necessarily be one or the other. But Ethereum is something that I'm really positive on looking forward. And I anticipate the technical advancements, Metropolis and Raiden, and a lot of that having a strong effect on the price of Ethereum in the future. But I think it's the updates, the technical advancements are going to have to kind of prove themselves in the market. And I think once we see that transactions can scale on the Ethereum network, that'll be a huge opportunity. Some people have said that's priced into the price of Ethereum right now. It may be, but I don't necessarily full on believe that Metropolis and Raiden are priced into Ethereum's $300, $298 price tag right now. The reason I don't necessarily believe it's priced in is because I don't think a lot of people necessarily. I think a lot of people have confidence, but they're going to believe it when they see it. So they want to see that the technology is smooth and the upgrades go smoothly without a massive hitch. And if that happens, then I think that it's a really great opportunity. But a lot of it's really going to depend, in my opinion, on how the Ethereum team can execute on a lot of what's going on here. Hey, what is up, Tyler from Sweden? How are you doing? So a couple different people mentioned Nicholas Roach. Let's see here. Lost 100 euros this weekend. It's a drop in. I think I'm down $1,000 today. It is what it is. But going over some more of these questions and taking a look at these as much as possible. And don't get me wrong, too. I mean, like I said, I'm confident in Ethereum and confident in a lot of these other cryptocurrencies long term. Can we be in for a market correction in the near term? Right now, obviously, within the month of September, it's basically been a correction. Could there be a further correction outside of just the China news? I think absolutely that's possible. But for me right now, I'm just holding on to everything because I've made gains, because they're taxable gains. And I don't necessarily want to have to, worry about that right now. That's kind of one thing. Maybe I should sell to buy back in lower, and that's not going to make a massive difference. But for right now, I'm holding on. I don't necessarily think that I want to try to time the market. I think that I could just potentially buy in lower at a later date if the market goes down and dollar cost average my way in. So that's kind of how I'm thinking there as well. Yeah, so Bullseye mentioned, I think this is a good point. Do you think you can have both short and long-term trading strategies simultaneously? For example, keeping Litecoin OMG long-term, but shorter-term trades with Bitcoin ETH on shorter trade swings? I think that's definitely possible. And that's somewhat of my strategy right now, quite frankly, to, full insight, at least in the past, kind of how I'm continuing to develop my strategy is I think there is still a lot of room in profit-wise. I think there's still a lot of room profit-wise in ICOs in the near term, and I've been talked about a couple different ICOs. I'm going to be getting in on the Black Moon ICO tomorrow. Engine Coin is another one. Mr. Danny mentioned. Engine Coin is another one that I'm getting in on. I got in on Monetha recently. I think there's a lot of profit and opportunity in ICOs, even if it's just for a 50, 100, even if it's for a 50% price spike. But with the ICOs, what I'm trying to do is looking at taking the profits from those ICOs and moving them into Ethereum and moving them into Bitcoin and potentially Litecoin and Monero, and trying to kind of build up a really strong holding of Bitcoin, of Ethereum, of Litecoin, of Monero. I own Omise Go as well. I have Civic too. Those are kind of my long-term holds. But taking profits shorter term in some of these ICOs so that I can kind of fund and build my position within Bitcoin, within Ethereum as well, because I think I've talked about it before, but I think kind of long term, some of these, I don't know when it's going to happen. I really have no idea, but whether it's 6 months, whether it's 2 months, whether it's a year, whether it's 2 years, there's going to be a specific point in time where a lot of these utility tokens, these altcoins that are not making profit, are not really, haven't even shipped a product yet. They're nothing more than a white paper, but they're valued at $250 million. Somebody's going to look at that and say, why is this valued at $250 million when it's just a white paper? They've taken 8 months to produce an alpha version of their decentralized application, and once they produce it, it sucks. So why am I going to pay this? I'm gonna ditch this token. I'm gonna ditch it, and then that's that. So I think there's definitely an opportunity short term to make money off a lot of those decentralized applications, those utility tokens. But long term, I want to have my money in larger cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, like a privacy coin, like potentially Monero. Omise Go is somewhat of a utility token, but I'm really confident in that long term, and potentially some other things, maybe like a Neo or like a Qtum or something of that nature too. And to that point as well, I mean, I think one thing and one of the positive things about some of that strategy, at least for me, or what I'm trying to think is a positive aspect of that strategy for me now, is that if and when the market does correct, then so I'm sure a lot of you guys notice it, obviously, but when you have Bitcoin or Ethereum, if the market goes up, Bitcoin and Ethereum go up, they usually lead the market, but they don't go up as much as some of these altcoins. Like, let's say Bitcoin goes up 5%. Some of the altcoins go up 10, 15%. But if Bitcoin goes down 5%, some of the altcoins go down 15, 20%. So if you are, while the gains might not be as big within a Bitcoin or within Ethereum now because of the size of them, the losses won't be as large either. You can still get losses, but kind of is what it is. So Roche mentioned, how can I make money fast from cryptocurrency? I mean, I guess there's a lot of ways. Some of it comes down to just evaluating strong opportunities. Some of it comes down to luck. And it depends on how fast too. There's a lot of things that go into that, quite frankly. But there's a lot of things that go into it that looking at making money fast, to be quite frank, if you're looking to make money fast within crypto, it's just as easy to lose money fast. And I'm sure a lot of you have seen that happen, but it is what it is. So Rio mentioned in regards to ICOs, can U.S. residents invest in ICOs? And the answer is yes, but it depends upon the company itself. So a lot of companies now are running more stringent KYC restrictions on the ICO, where they're asking for name, address, or at least country of origin, maybe your LinkedIn profile. I saw I forget, Syndicator was asking for a LinkedIn profile, a website, the country of origin, your country of residence. And that was not open in the United States. So that's something to keep in mind. But there's no law right now preventing companies from ICOing in the United States. But a lot of companies are terrified of the Securities and Exchange Commission. And if they think that their ICO could potentially, their token could potentially be treated as a security or considered a security, then they won't ICO in the United States because they are scared of having SEC regulation. Now, some companies will basically just say no American citizens allowed, and then all they'll do is they'll block American or IP addresses out of the United States. So the only thing that somebody would have to do, if it's a pretty simple ICO, all they essentially have to do is log into a VPN, and then they can log into a VPN, and then from there, just VPN from Ireland or from Shanghai or from wherever. Is that necessarily illegal? I guess it's kind of a gray area, but the only thing that would happen with that is that if you are, you lose all your money, and they said no Americans, and you were an American and you went in through the ICO through a VPN or something like that, you really would essentially be forfeiting, or in a lot of cases probably forfeiting, your rights to have any type of like lawsuit or anything like that against that company that had the ICO. Yeah, so Bullseye mentioned ICOs want to know what you've eaten for breakfast due to regulators. A lot of them have increased. It's called KYC, know your customer, know your client. But basically it's called KYC. And a lot of these, Kin by Kik was another one. They were asking for a passport picture and your passport number. And you could be a U.S. citizen, but they want to have your passport number. And a lot of people signed up for that. I think they had 16,000 people. I'm actually not personally right now, for full transparency. I registered for the Kin by Kik ICO, but from what I've seen, the valuation is about $1.2 billion out of the gate. So I think that's way too rich of a valuation. And that ICO is happening tomorrow. For me personally, that valuation is way too rich. I wouldn't doubt if it comes down once the ICO happens and it's on the exchanges. So I'm not going to participate in the Kin by Kik ICO, but I prefer something with a smaller cap so that there's actually some room for growth above. I mean, for Kin to double in price, it would have to go up $1.2 billion, and that would only be 100% gain. So, whereas something like Manetha, where I participated in that went up 100%, and it was only a gain of like $25 million, which is kind of why I like that. So Sandra mentioned Black Moon Crypto. I could pull this up. I'll just shoot. I'll shoot a link to the. I'll shoot a link to the YouTube here so that you have it. But what do we got here? I'll just put a link to it. So I did a Black Moon Crypto review. Where are we at?
He's written for Forbes, Success Magazine.
So if you guys want to see Black Moon Crypto, there's a link to it. I talked about that a little bit for that video.
You watching this, you in the wrong place.
If you want to check that out, definitely go ahead and do that. I'm going to participate in that ICO tomorrow. Daniel mentioned
learning how to take my level to the 10x level, man.
I think they were able to solve most of the issues, it sounds like, but they had security audit.
It elevates my game. I think it elevates my freaking soul.
This is the #1 entrepreneurship conference on planet Earth. If you're not here in 2018, you're crazy.
Definitely something to be aware of. Oh, sorry about that. Sorry, guys. Sorry. I didn't realize that was happening. My bad. Apologies there. So yeah, I mean, as far as Daniel, as far as Kik goes, I think that from a security audit perspective, there was something on Twitter that I saw basically today. I retweeted it, but they had a company do a security audit that found a couple different issues with it, and then there just wasn't a ton of time prior to the ICO, being that it's tomorrow, to address that. So, and guys, I'm sorry about that. I think half the people on the live stream were just like, fuck you, I'm getting off this thing. William Fernandez, what is up, my dude? Thoughts on Qtum. So, let's see here. So it looks like Qtum is having a little bit of a nice spike right now. Take a look percentage-wise. So Qtum's up about 15%. I'm not sure if this is news-driven. I haven't had a chance to see. We'll pull up CoinMarketCap and see what is up with that. But yeah, Qtum looks up. Let's see. Qtum's up about 13%, which is interesting. And another one that's up quite nicely is actually IOTA. And I was thinking about pulling the trigger on IOTA a little bit recently because IOTA's gotten hammered. I don't know if anybody else kind of saw that, noticed that. IOTA got hammered pretty good with, speaking of security vulnerabilities, I think some companies or a company essentially audited and looked at IOTA's code, and they found a lot of issues with essentially what was going on with IOTA and kind of how things were structured, and they had some pretty strong critiques of IOTA from a technical standpoint, and I believe they've mostly been addressed, but it still was enough to send the market from about close to $3 billion, right under $3 billion, all the way down to basically cut it in half within the past week or so, or within the past couple days. Actually, no, this is all time. Sorry about that. That's all time. But it cut things down from about $2 billion down here to 1.5. It lost about $5 to $600 million of market cap, and is having a little bit of a run here, but still nowhere near kind of where it was previously. So certainly something to look at, and that's actually why I was looking at IOTA as something of, that might be the bottom of it. It got a lot of negative press from a security perspective, and people question the architecture because it's very different than a Bitcoin, or it's very different than an Ethereum. It's structured differently. There's the whole concept of a tangle. So I was thinking of maybe making a quick trade on IOTA to get that in, to basically have a little bit more success there, but I didn't pull the trigger, but it looks like that might have been a decent move. Yeah, a couple people have mentioned BitConnect. I'm definitely not in on BitConnect. I think it's a little bit shady. Seems like a Ponzi scheme to me. I've said it before, I'll say it again, but I am not, definitely not a BitConnect guy at all. I don't know if somebody keeps mentioning BitConnect or what. So Juan mentioned thoughts on Dogecoin, and Juan mentioned thoughts on Dogecoin, and Dogecoin is actually what got me into cryptocurrency. Funny enough, back in like 2013, there was an article in Business Insider, and I read the article, and I was like somewhat familiar with Bitcoin, but wasn't too familiar. And then I saw like there was an article about Dogecoin being basically created, and that's what I got invested in, I started mining Dogecoin on my laptop, on my GPU laptop, which is basically why my laptop doesn't work anymore, because I fried the GPU, fried the CPU, and just wrecked it. But that is, Dogecoin is funny. I've actually had a chance to get to know the founder of Doge, the guy who founded Dogecoin, a little bit, just kind of through Twitter and YouTube too, which has been cool. He's a really good dude as well. So Bullseye mentioned, what do I think about Supernode coins? Nice income possible. I need to look into some of those more, but the thought process, and I think, some of that, depending upon what the node coin is or the super node coin is, some of that seems a little bit like chain coining to me, where, there were all those kind of YouTubers for a specific point in time that were pumping chain coin and saying, buy this and you're going to hold on and you're going to get dividends for the rest of your life. And the price went from 10 cents to $6, and then it shot back all the way down because it was really just a big pump and dump. But I think the concept of getting dividends and nice passive income from cryptocurrency is great, but anything that promises it is a little bit, depending upon how things go. I know Ethereum is moving to a proof of stake and out of proof of work, so Ethereum might be something like that, but not anything like a chain coin, but you kind of get what I'm saying of an actual proof of stake coin. So Andy mentioned what happened to NEO. It dropped like shit. It did, for sure. NEO has been affected, and as was Qtum, NEO's been affected quite a bit by the issues around China and the Chinese exchanges, or the Chinese ICO ban, and a lot of other things. So, this is... I'll take a better look here. So within the past month or so, NEO was killing it for a while. For 3 months, NEO killed it. I rode NEO from, actually, when it was at $6 or so. So around here on NEO, I bought in around $6. It went all the way up to $50, and I was riding high. And then I took a little bit of a dip, and I sold. I took profits at $38 and moved that into OMG, Omise Go, which was turned out to be a decent move, at least as of now. But since then, it has essentially fallen off a cliff. It had a little bit of a spike recently and then dove back down. And right now it's settled around, from a US dollar perspective, around $20, $22, $23 for the most part. So if you want to look at NEO here, it's kind of where it's settled. And a lot of the issues with NEO are around the ICOs within China. NEO in some cases was supposed to be like the Ethereum for China. That's at least what basically people in America were saying. It's going to be the Ethereum for China. But outside of that, there were some issues there with the regulation, and that's really what caused the most portion of a sell-off there as well. Yeah, Anthony, I'll definitely work on getting some mods at some point in time. So somebody mentioned, what trades am I eyeing for tonight? I'm not necessarily trading tonight. I'm participating in the Black Moon Crypto ICO tomorrow. So that's somewhat of like my trade, I guess you would say. Outside of that, looking at some of these cryptos, some places where I see some opportunity, quite frankly. Where I see opportunity, where I'm looking at the dip is, and where I'm considering making a move on some of these, and where some of these cryptos have held up nicely. Litecoin has held up nicely. I think that's something that's shown a little bit of resistance to some of the market drops. Monero is another one that I have some interest in, and Monero hasn't necessarily recovered that well, but I think it's trading at a good discount from kind of its all-time high of around 150 or so. One thing that's really kind of catching my eye quite a bit is OMG, and I have, for full transparency as well, I have a decent amount of holdings in OMG, but that's probably one of my biggest holdings. But just watching the way it's held up against, really for me, watching OMG and the way it's held up against this, like the market sell-off recently. Ethereum and Bitcoin lost $800 or so from its market cap. It lost a good amount of percentage. Ethereum got crushed. For the most part, OMG's held up pretty nicely. I think it's at a point in time where it's steadying off a little bit at around this 1150 mark, but it's giving me a little bit of confidence that it's been able to hold up. I think there's a lot of people that are really excited, quite frankly, about the platform, and I'm looking forward to seeing if Ethereum can kind of continue the run it's had and make a nice move up. And a couple different people have mentioned, that it's on Binance now, I believe, or is getting added to Binance. That's another thing. Typically, coins will pop when they go into an exchange like that, but it might be priced in being where we're at right now. So we'll have to see with that for sure. But like I said, for full transparency, OMG is one of my biggest holdings, and it's a long-term holding as well. I got in. One of the reasons too, it's one of my bigger holdings. I got in at about $1.60. So I got in after it went up 400% from the ICO. I was like, oh wow. I didn't even put that much, but. So somebody mentioned, would I buy EOS at the bottom right now and keep long term? I'm not a fan of EOS. I'd rather have my money in Ethereum, quite frankly. I know there's a lot of potential benefits to EOS from a transactions perspective and kind of how they're structuring the network. But if nobody's using it, and if it's not necessarily in fruition yet, then I'm not as excited about it as Ethereum. While Ethereum is running up into some transaction scalability issues, at the same point in time, that's actually because people are transacting on the network, whereas EOS is there really even a full-on network there? So kind of my thought process there. Somebody mentioned, when is it a good time to sell OMG? It depends on if you want to take profits or not. Do you want to take profits or not? And if so, taking profits is never a bad thing. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. If you've made money and you are not comfortable with the risk that you have, or you want to put your money elsewhere, taking profits is never a bad thing, in my opinion. If it's 2% profit, if it's 1,000% profit, you're making money. So good for you. I can't tell you when a good time to sell a profitable coin for you is, but we'll see. Somebody else mentioned, Nicholas mentioned, what do I think of Sia Coin and Pascal Coin? So I don't have too much thoughts, quite frankly, on Pascal Coin. For me, Sia Coin, I've talked a little bit about Sia Coin previously. This is another utility token that had a decent day today, but Sia Coin is a utility token that's really taken a bad sell-off since July or so, or June, July action. It was really one of the hottest coins of June. It had a crazy spike in May and June, and has had a really steady sell-off in the past couple months. So it went from a high market cap of $500 million or so down to less than $200 million. And it hasn't, in my opinion, it hasn't necessarily shown enough signs that it's going to come back that I would invest in Sia Coin. And you might look at it right now and see like, oh, wow, this crypto is down 200, it's down 200%. It's down 50% from its high. What, that would be a great opportunity for me to get in here, and I want to get in because it's going to go back up to that all-time high. It doesn't necessarily mean that. And I think with a lot of these utility tokens, if people see that the value of the token isn't there, if people see the project isn't getting developed, if it's an older project, they're going to be less and less patient on investing into it, and they're going to sell off quicker, and I think you're seeing that with Sia Coin, quite frankly. Have I ever looked into Walton Coin? So I've looked into Walton Coin a little bit. Personally, I've looked into Walton Coin a little bit. I haven't done as much research as I probably should. It's obviously done well in the past, so it's been brought up to me a number of different times, and I've talked about it multiple times. And I probably, if I bought it when all these people talked to me about it, and when all of you guys asked me about it, I probably would have done fairly well. But a lot of the research on it, it's not in English. It's RFID technology, or if it's based off RFID technology in a lot of respects. It's a smaller cap coin. It's something that I'm not too familiar with, so I'm not going to put my money in it right now. If I'm being very frank with you, let's translate this and see what's up. But basically, yeah, in regards to RFID technology and a lot of the reliance of that and how they can kind of build a blockchain around RFID, the integration of the Internet of Things and how that's going to work. I haven't done enough research there. I mean, if you've held on to it, if you made profit, great. But for me, it's something that I'm not touching right now as of yet. So somebody mentioned, Bimmer mentioned, would I suggest buying into Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin as a first-time buy? For example, maybe $5,000 each. I think those are 3 good places to buy. It depends on what you want with your portfolio. It depends on how you want to, what you want with your portfolio. Matt, I will definitely answer those questions from Facebook for sure. But I would say, I mean, if you're going to buy, especially a substantial amount with $5,000 each, what you'd likely want to do is dollar cost average as well. So I think dollar cost averaging is important. Let's say you buy $1,000 of Bitcoin, $1,000 of Ethereum, and $1,000 of Litecoin for every week for the next 5 weeks or every month for the next 5 months. I would do something like that so you can kind of spread out your risk as well. And going back to that Facebook group too, so if you guys aren't in the Facebook group, if you want to join, I'll post the link here, but certainly feel free. And then to that point as well, if you guys are new to the channel, definitely hit me up with a subscribe. So I do daily recorded crypto videos where I do more of like a market recap on what's happening in the news and just some general thoughts, suggestions, things of that nature. And then I do these YouTube lives where I just kind of come hang out and try to talk to you and give you as much, I guess, of what's going on in my mind as humanly possible there. So a couple different things at this point in time. I'll take the question. I'm just kind of reading through these again. So somebody mentioned too spending your Bitcoin and how to spend your Bitcoin or whatever it might be. If you made a bunch of money in Bitcoin, if you're looking to spend money in Bitcoin, you can certainly. There's a number of different places now too. I mean, it's probably even just a quick Google search, but I mean, there's big companies out there like Overstock.com that accept Bitcoin now. A lot of places integrate directly with BitPay, so you can they'll integrate with BitPay, and you can use something like that. In addition to that, you can kind of do a number of things. Even a lot of luxury good places are now starting to accept cryptocurrency or Bitcoin specifically because so many people have made a lot of money on it. I don't know if you guys saw, there was an article pretty recently about an apartment tower in Dubai that's specifically for Bitcoin owners, Bitcoin millionaires. So that's something I would definitely check out. Not the apartment in Dubai, but just there's a million different ways you could spend your Bitcoin if you'd like to. Just depends on what you want to spend it on. You could buy a Lamborghini with Bitcoin. There's dealerships that accept that. So, and then in addition to that too, so a couple different things. Andy mentioned a walkthrough on buying in on an ICO. Also, after investing, how long before you see if you are profitable? So if you guys are not familiar with ICOs and kind of how it works. So I can pull up Black Moon, or I can even talk a little about Monetha, since it is a little bit of. It was fairly recently. It happened pretty recently. So Monetha had an ICO. They raised $37 million in 18 minutes, which is pretty crazy. I got in on the ICO. Essentially, how you get in on these ICOs is, long story short, you have to be utilizing like My Ether wallet or a Parity wallet, something that can receive ERC20 tokens. And essentially what happens with an ICO is you use a My Ether wallet, or you use Parity, or you use Exodus. I believe Exodus works as well. But you use those wallets and you send Ethereum from your wallet to an address that is provided by the company. Now, one thing you definitely want to do is make sure that it's not a phishing website, because a lot of people have been sending Ethereum thinking they're participating in an ICO and it's some scammy site, and then you lose out. What's up, Derp? Hope it's going well, man. So you send your Ethereum to this specific address, and then the companies themselves that are running these ICOs have a smart contract that will provide you with a specific number of their tokens based on the amount of Ethereum you send to them. So if you send 1 ETH, then maybe depending upon the ratio, their smart contract is going to calculate how many tokens are sent back to you. Sometimes it's done immediately. Sometimes there's a lockup period on those tokens and they're not sent for 5 days or for a week or whatever it might be. So that depends a little bit on the actual ICO itself. But once the ICO happens, there's a specific point where, at least from what I'm seeing right now, there is a specific point where once you invest, if it's an ICO where they hold the tokens for at least a few days maybe, the first place that you're going to find the tokens is going to be Ether Delta, which is a decentralized cryptocurrency exchange. And the reason for that is because if it's on Ether Delta, companies don't necessarily need to go and basically companies don't need to negotiate with them or do anything of like, it's not like they have to approach Bittrex or anything like that, and they don't have to kind of negotiate or get any type of listing specifically on an exchange. Ether Delta, people just kind of put their tokens out there, and since it's open source, that happens. But so like Monetha, I bought some Monetha. You could actually see here I bought, I think it was 19,245 Monetha. So I bought a good amount. I bought like 8 Ethereum worth. So I bought 8 ETH worth on that, and then I just sold like 245. So I was just playing around with my Ether Delta. And with that being said, you can see the price and kind of how it functions here. Ether Delta is definitely, if you're not familiar with Ether Delta, this is like I said, one of the first places that an exchange is that a coin is typically going to be launched on. However, it's very different from a Bittrex or from a Poloniex or from a GDAX or a Coinbase. There's a lot of intricacies involved with utilizing it since it is decentralized. There's actually a smart contract component of it, and there's kind of different deposits and withdrawals you have to do. So if you ever do utilize Ether Delta, I would highly recommend watching some YouTube videos from people on how to use it, so you don't lose your money, because you'll see a lot of times. Sometimes I literally woke up one morning and I flipped open Blockfolio, and there's nothing to prevent somebody from fat fingering a trade within Ether Delta. So if instead of paying 0.137 or something like that, some people have typed in the wrong amount that they're trying to pay on Ether Delta, and they'll pay like 100 or 1,000 times what the crypto is worth. So I went in one day and I saw my 8 Ether within the Monetha ICO was worth like $75,000, and it's because somebody fat fingered a trade on Ether Delta. So just be careful when you are looking at things. You just have to. There's not a lot of protection from a usability perspective on Ether Delta. Like if you screw something up, you're not fixing it. Whereas maybe on like a Bittrex or on a GDAX, they're gonna give you the best price available. That doesn't work like that on Ether Delta. So be aware and cognitive of that. So somebody mentioned Monetha. Did I sell at 0.008? I think I sold. This was literally, I sold like maybe 2% of my actual holding. So this was honestly just to play around with Ether Delta and not necessarily like selling off. I'm holding 98% of that. And I'm waiting for me personally, I'm at least waiting for Monetha to get onto a larger exchange, which I believe is supposed to happen in like 2 weeks or so. And that's kind of a path I've tried to take a little bit, is I think once Monetha gets some liquidity, if it goes on Liqui, if it goes on Bittrex, anything like that, something you want to definitely be aware of. Somebody mentioned, why is Steemit useful, and is it something to get involved with? So I'll pull up my Steemit profile if you guys aren't familiar with it. I'll link to it here as well. And so Steemit is okay. It's kind of like Reddit, but you get paid for posting. However, if you if you look at a lot of it, not a lot of people, quite frankly, are like that interested in the content itself on Reddit. What I'm finding is on Steemit, what I'm finding is a lot of people just are trying to comment on posts because they want to get paid or they want to get upvoted. Basically what happens is if you get upvoted, you get a certain amount of Steemit dollars, and then you can cash those out. You can move them to Bitcoin or whatever you want to do. So that's something that happens within Steemit, but because you get paid for it, a lot of people are very money driven by it, and they're just trying to put out content, or they're just trying to comment and do things. There's all these kind of weird schemes around, like, you upvote me, I upvote you, and then like we'll be more popular together. Like that stuff to me is a waste of time. Some people do well though. It looks like some people make $100 or $200 a day if they're fairly like famous, if they're crypto famous. And what you'll also find is the vast majority of Steemit content, at least from what I've seen, is like cryptocurrency based, because it is like a decentralized platform, and the content that isn't cryptocurrency isn't that great. Like Reddit is a much better user experience in my opinion. Just because Reddit isn't decentralized doesn't mean Steemit is better. Is it awful to get paid maybe 34 cents to post something? Not the worst thing in the world. I'll take it. But and I'm learning the platform. I've made some connections on the platform, but I don't think it's I see a lot of people out there, quite frankly, that say just because something is decentralized, it makes it better. Like they came out with an extension called DTube, which is decentralized YouTube, basically. And a lot of people I saw on Steemit or on YouTube or wherever were saying like this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And quite frankly, the user experience on DTube and on Steemit is not as good as YouTube and Reddit. So people are going to, I think the average person cares a lot less about decentralization, especially within some of these applications, than they do about a good user experience. So until the user experience can match what centralized applications have, then I think that's something that you have to be aware of, or you definitely want to take into consideration as you might invest or participate in those things. That's just kind of my thought. It's not necessarily the definitive truth by any stretch, but I'm kind of curious too. I had a bunch of people say kind of where they were dialing in from. We got almost like 200 people. If you guys are, I'm right outside of New York City, but if you guys are anywhere interesting in the world, would love to hear where you guys are watching, dialing in from tonight, or if it's during the day for you as well. Would love to hear where you are, where you're watching this from. So that'd be pretty sweet. Mr. Potato mentioned check out yours.org, the Coinbase founder. Is that Fred, who has left Coinbase? But I don't know if that's Fred or if that's Brian Armstrong. But Coinbase, Canada, Jamaica, England, Coinbase is interesting because there's a lot of people leaving Coinbase now that are NYC, what up? A lot of people leaving Coinbase and going to start off other cryptocurrency, whether it's been cryptocurrency funds or anything like that. That's been pretty cool to see how they can potentially innovate in the space. Yep, Brian Armstrong. Got it. Argentina, Spain, 3 a.m. Yeah, you do need to go to bed. I got to go to bed at some point tonight, too. I got a meeting tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. that I got to drive to. So, customer needs to have all of Crypto Bobby ready to go and thinking straight. So I need to be on my game. Japan, what is up, Mickey? Jamaica, hope everything with the hurricane was okay for you guys. Florida, yeah. Will, hope you guys are all good with that hurricane and that's all past you, I hope, and your houses and cars and personal possessions and family are all good. So hopefully that's okay for you. So now that I know there's people from every single aspect of the world here, Roof is still on. That is a positive. That is a damn positive. But if anybody has any specific crypto you want me to check out or any questions, whether it's on kind of future ICOs or whatever it might be, happy to specific crypto that you're looking at or have any thoughts on, would be happy to touch base on that as well. So yours.org, I'm not super familiar with it. Let's pull it up, see what this is about. So I guess this is, in some cases it looks pretty similar to Steemit. Craig Wright, a couple other people. I need to check out this more, quite frankly. So I need to give this a little bit of more research as far as kind of what is up with yours.org. I haven't seen it too much, but I mean, outside of that too, from a just initial user experience, even just looking at the page so far, it doesn't look much better than Steemit, if it looks any better than Steemit either. So that's something to be concerned about. Sandra, I saw Jesus Coin. I'm solely not going to look at Jesus Coin just because it has such a ridiculous name. So that's kind of where my head's at on that. Is, I don't know. That seems, Jesus, seriously. Outside of that, looking at some more questions here. Is Coinigy the best exchange to use? So Coinigy is not even an exchange. It's just a collection of exchanges. It's just a charting tool. So it basically pulls the data from all the exchanges. So this is, you can see, like, this is Bitcoin Indonesia. This is Bitfinex. This is Bitstamp. This is BTR. This is Bittrex. You can get data from GDAX, whatever it is. You can just kind of find all that on on Coinigy. So that's why I utilize it. It's a premium product, so they charge, I think, like $15 a month for it. But yeah, that's I like it, at least, especially too. I mean, I don't think you necessarily need it unless you're like really into pulling information from a lot of other places. You might not necessarily need it, but I like it too because it helps me, even just in terms of like having these videos and being able to talk to you guys, being able to pull things up pretty quickly and talk on the fly. So I think that's pretty helpful. Yeah, Walton Coin mooting again. Wank Coin, wow. Jesus and Wank, I don't know if they go together. Do they go together? Maybe not. So I covered Omise Go, I covered Walton Coin and Neo, but I'll quickly recap on a couple of them. So with Neo, I'm waiting. I profited quite a bit on Neo initially. I bought it at $6. I sold it around $38. I'm waiting on some of the Chinese regulation to get straightened out with Neo. I think if more regulation comes out, it's going to fall even more. I just don't think it has that much momentum right now. For me, OMG, I think, still has a lot of momentum, and it's something that I still have my money in. I still think there's still a lot of opportunity with OMG, so I'm holding on to OMG. And then Walton Coin, I haven't done enough research on it. It seems to have a lot of people talking about it. It seems to have some momentum. But, yeah, that's my quick thought process there. Taking a look at some of these other things. So Dirt mentioned, does Mrs. Bobby follow crypto at all? No, she is not a crypto fan. The wife is not a crypto fan, but that's fine. It's my hobby. It's my hobby. It's my second wife, I guess. Engine looks promising. Yeah, I think Engine does look promising as well. I made a video on that the other day too. So that's something that looks promising. ID mentioned Credo. Credo, that's something that I've participated in the ICO and I've gotten crushed on. So if you guys, quite frankly, if you think like every ICO is a slam dunk, every time you invest in an ICO, it's going to do well, it's far from the case. Far from the case. So I participated in the Credo ICO. That has gone basically nowhere. I put 4.5 ETH into it, and I think it's now worth maybe 2 Ethereum, maybe a little bit above 2. So I basically lost 50% of my money. Not that it's massive, but it's something that you just, anytime you're investing in an ICO, a lot of them that have really big hype surrounding them, they could be good for a quick profit or for a long-term hold like Omise Go, but if it doesn't have momentum, it could really be a slow bleed out, which you might see in some of these ICOs as well. A couple other questions I'm looking at here too. So am I in the Bay Area? No, I'm outside of New York City, but I work for a tech company that's headquartered in the Bay Area, so go to San Francisco quite a bit. Like San Francisco, like the Bay Area. Sagar mentioned, do I use Coinbase? What did I just say about Coinbase? I think I was just talking about the founder of Coinbase, and specifically there's a lot of people that are employees of Coinbase. Coinbase has blown up, obviously, in terms of, I think, revenue. Their valuation has gone from being 100 million or a couple hundred million to now being over $1 billion company from a valuation, from a VC perspective. But yeah, I do use Coinbase. For me, that's the easiest way to get fiat into cryptocurrency. It's always worked for me. I know some people have some issues with their customer support. They are ramping up customer support, but kind of is what it is. Some people like Gemini, some people like other cryptocurrency exchanges. For me, I just have all my information within Coinbase. I like Coinbase. It works really well, and I also like GDAX too, so. Scott was going to buy me a coffee. That's awesome. If I'm ever out in the Bay Area. I did have Blue Bottle twice today. I have a Blue Bottle pretty close to my office. I love it. Gotta love hipster coffee. So somebody else mentioned Kyber. I think that is another ICO that's coming up that has a lot of hype behind it. I didn't get on the whitelist. I think the whitelist for that is closed. But if you are in on the whitelist, I think that has a lot of hype behind it. I've heard some really, really solid things about Kyber from all the people in the space that I trust, and I hold a lot of weight as far as kind of their decision-making goes and what they think about and everything of that nature. Did I do the Enigma ICO today? I did not. I know a lot of people that did, though. And I think they had a lot of issues. Enigma, they had issues initially. They got their website got hacked. Hackers sent $500,000, or hackers basically stole $500,000 from people. But after that, they fixed that. I think they reimbursed the $500,000 for most people, and then they raised the actual cap of the ICO. So there were some issues with that, but I still heard that for the most part the project is pretty promising, even with a lot of the issues. So we'll see how that turns out. But I didn't participate in the Enigma ICO. Didn't get in on the whitelist on that in time. Chris mentioned Kin. The Kin ICO. For me, I was excited about it. I was looking into it, but I just think the valuation being $1.2 billion is too high. So I'm not going to be in on the Kin ICO. I feel like I'd rather put my money with a smaller cap name that has excitement behind it and can do well. Corey mentioned District OX. The concept looks promising, but the price has dropped so much. Tell me about it. I'm holding some DNT bags right now, down about 50%. I probably should have just pulled the trigger and sold it and taken some losses, but at this point in time, I feel like I might as well just hold on to it because it'll probably go back up at a certain point in time. A couple people have mentioned OK Cash. I need to look into OK Cash more. I haven't had a chance to kind of look into all of that now at this point in time, but I need to look into OK Cash more for you. And sorry, Coin McFace, I didn't get a chance to look into Match Pool. My bad on that. Apologies there. So OK Cash and Match Pool, I'll re-put on my list to check out for you guys as well. So somebody mentioned, I think it's a good question, how long does it take to go from ICO to exchange? And this is something that's been, I believe, extended quite a bit more recently, is essentially with these ICOs, it's been taking a lot longer for a lot of these recently ICO'd coins to get onto exchanges. Some of it depends on Crypto Supply. What's up, my man? How you doing? Some of it depends on the actual company itself and like how much hype they have surrounding it, because I think the bigger ICOs that have like a really strong legal team behind them and have strong regulatory footing are quicker to get onto these exchanges. But with a lot of the uncertainty surrounding ICO regulation as of recently, it used to be that basically like as soon as like, let's say with Status and with Civic, like as soon as Status and Civic were released, or pretty close to, like basically as soon as those tokens were released and as soon as you had access to those tokens, they were on Liqui really quick. They were on Bittrex pretty quickly as well. They were on exchanges. Now you are seeing once a lot of these cryptocurrencies are exchangeable or transferable is really the right word there, but once they're transferable, they end up sitting, at least some of the smaller ones, they're sitting on Ether Delta as the only point of exchange. Like if I pull up Monetha right here, where you can tell where what exchanges something's trading at is on the markets tab within CoinMarketCap. You'll click on the individual currency, but like Ether Delta, Mercatox is another one I'm not too familiar, but it has pretty small volume in comparison. But Ether Delta is really the one main place where they're trading Monetha, which was a decent sized ICO. And the same can be said about some of the other cryptocurrencies too. Like I was just talking about how I took a pretty good bath with Credo, or Credo. That's really only trading on Ether Delta. I think they announced they're trading now on some very small South American exchange. But I took a bath on this. Super low volume here, not great at all. But and that's not being added to just as a word of warning, or part of an issue with some of these ICOs, especially some of the smaller ICOs. Liquidity is an issue, and if they don't get added to exchanges quickly, I think a lot of the hype around the project dies off, which is kind of why I'm hoping that Monetha can get added to an exchange fairly quickly. Because if it takes a month, 2 months to get added to Bittrex or Poloniex or something like that, then it makes it a little bit more difficult, I think, to maintain the hype around the coin. So somebody just asked for the Twitter account. Kyle, there's the Twitter account, man. Asan asked about Pluscoin and Kajitel ICOs. I haven't had a chance to look into those too much in depth, so I'll have to take a look at those there as well. Koyi mentioned the Black Moon ICO. So I did a video on Black Moon. It's one that I want to participate in. I like Black Moon. I think it's a good project. It's going to compete directly with Economy as well as Melonport, and I think the team it has in place to compete against Economy and Melonport is strong. So I'm liking that. That crypto guy mentioned ED is on GitHub. It actually moved. I think the Ether Delta GitHub redirects here now as well. Let's see if it does or not. Yeah, so it's no longer on GitHub. GitHub crashed this weekend, I believe. So now it's just straight up on its etherdelta.com. That was confirmed by the founder of Ether Delta, or like the guy who runs it, basically put on his hand and on Twitter is like, it is now etherdelta.com, so people knew it was real and not just like a fake post. So Alex mentioned, can I recommend an app for getting the price notifications on coins? I would recommend Blockfolio is the crypto app that I use just for pricing. And it's where I keep track of my portfolio. You can also send alerts as well. So if you're looking for alerts on a specific cryptocurrency, you can send alerts to that too. And yeah, definitely check out Blockfolio, Alex. It's on Apple iPhone. I would assume it's on Android as well. So that's something I would definitely just add to your repertoire there for sure. Christian mentioned bought in on Civic on the hype, holding bags for the long term. I am a Civic holder. I got in on Civic's ICO. It's up about 400% or so, or around maybe around that for me. So I'm holding long term. I think there's a lot of good potential. I like Vinny in the space, and I think he is. I think he's somebody that could do well. And I think the Equifax hack is going to kind of long-term push some of the issues, kind of push the issue around identity verification and how outside of banking, I feel like identity verification could be the next type of industry that could be disrupted by blockchain. Whether or not that comes to fruition or not, who knows? But Civic is a long-term hold for me. I don't know how heavy the bags are for you, but I'm holding Civic. I think it is one of the cryptocurrencies with a lot of potential that has an actual product that actually is doing something in the space and isn't just like vaporware in a website or in a white paper. So for me, if you are going to hold bags, I don't think Civic's bags are the worst ones to hold, quite frankly. But I'm also, like I said, I also got in on the ICO, so take that with a grain of salt. So Nicholas mentioned, somebody new to crypto, what would I recommend watching to get educated to make good decisions about trading? I think that there's a lot of different things that you can watch, and there's a lot of different ways you can trade. It depends upon your experience level, what you have experience-wise in like the existing financial markets. If you're new to cryptocurrency too, I mean, I think in some cases, honestly, the best way to learn is to jump in and to make some mistakes. Granted, you want to make some mistakes with minimal losses, but if you start small, I would recommend learning by starting small, buying a couple cryptocurrencies that you're excited about. I would recommend maybe buying some larger cryptos like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum, or maybe top 10, top 20 type coins on CoinMarketCap, just to limit your losses in case anything goes bad. But for me, I would that's kind of what I would recommend doing. So what wallet can you hold Civic in? I hold my Civic in my Ledger Nano S. That is what I utilize, and Civic is an ERC20 token, so you can just hold that in anything that takes ERC20 token. So I use my Ledger Nano S for that. So William mentioned safe to send from Ledger to Black Moon and use that address. Yeah. So when I send from an ICO, I'll take my Ledger, I'll plug it into my laptop, I will log into my Ether wallet with the Ledger, and then I will send the Ethereum from that, and I will use my Ledger address to receive the token. So that's basically my process flow for that. And somebody mentioned, I mean, even on the sense of Black Moon token and going outside of Black Moon token, but outside of Black Moon token, I think one of the interesting things to see is the institutional money that is eventually going into the space and coming into the space now on a more consistent basis. I think that is going to be something that is really exciting to me, at least. Whether it's venture capital money, whether it's private equity or hedge fund type money, the more of that money that's going to come into the space, I think the price is obviously going to go up, but there's also going to be some kind of, I think there's going to be some craziness associated with that. So I'm keeping an eye. There's been a couple different articles today in regards to these funds that are now getting into, and the amount of institutional kind of big banking money that's getting into cryptocurrency. So I've been keeping an eye on that. And it's something that I think is very interesting in a lot of respects. And I would too recommend, I think once the ETFs have all gotten denied, but once an ETF happens, I think that's going to be crazy, incredible for cryptocurrency. And that's really, at least for Bitcoin and probably Ethereum too, and maybe like a couple other the top cryptocurrencies. But I think primarily Bitcoin, then additionally Ethereum. If and when an ETF ever happens, then I think we're going to be in a really solid place. Aaron Murray, opinion on Digibyte. So I don't have, quite frankly, like too drawn out of an opinion on Digibyte now. Where we got here? Pull this thing up. So Digibyte had a massive spike in July. It basically did nothing since came out 2014. Basically did nothing. Massive spike in July, and then had a little bit of a spike again in September, but for the most part is leveling off. with that being said, I mean, that one big spike was kind of in the euphoric state, and it's had a nice big run up recently in the past couple days. But for me, I don't. I'm not a fan of Digibyte kind of long term. This spike itself on the year-to-date standpoint looks a little bit unnatural to me, and the sell-off does as well. I mean, going from $2 million in market cap to $400 million, if you were in on that, you made a shit ton of money. But if you weren't, and you got in at the top, or you bought in on the euphoria, you're holding bags, so that's not the greatest thing in the world. Yeah, Andrew mentioned too, from a cryptocurrency bubble perspective, there's a market cap of whatever it is right now, 145 billion, fluctuates between 160, 140, whatever it might be, 145 billion right now. Visa has a market cap of, like you said, $256 billion. Granted, Visa is a profitable company, very profitable company. Bitcoin is obviously a different type of entity, where not even an entity. I mean, it's a decentralized currency. So it's very much different, or it's a decentralized cryptocurrency. So it's very different than that. But I mean, even to that perspective too, from the overall investment standpoint. So I was watching a video the other day on how to properly evaluate cryptocurrency and how to kind of discuss it. And there were a lot of different things that were discussed from a valuation perspective. But one of the things that was brought up was hold on, I'm gonna fix this. 1 second here. There we go. Sorry about that, guys. But as far as crypto goes with the overall market capitalization perspective, if you took 10% of the money, or if you took gold, since a lot of people compare Bitcoin to digital gold, because it has, it's a store value, it's divisible. There are a lot of components that can kind of take Bitcoin to digital gold. That if you take the overall market cap of gold right now and take 10% of that, Bitcoin would be, I think, don't take these numbers. I can link to it afterwards, so don't take these numbers completely. I think it was 10% of gold's market cap, but if you did that, then the price of Bitcoin would be worth $38,000 per Bitcoin. And granted, the guy was like, that means nothing. But that's just an example of like how large the market is for gold and how large the market is for other types of investment, potential investment vehicles there. So something there to definitely be aware of. So Sam Rosenberg mentioned, can you buy altcoins with fiat? So typically no. What you'd want to do, and the most common way of doing something, for me personally at least, my process flow for the most part is I'll go over to Coinbase. I'm not going to sign in right now, but I'll go to Coinbase. I'll buy Bitcoin, or I'll buy Ethereum, or I'll buy a Litecoin, and then you can use an exchange like Bittrex to take that Bitcoin, Ethereum, or Litecoin that you just utilized, and then you would take that, you would transfer that to your Bitcoin wallet on Bittrex or your Ethereum wallet, and then you could buy against any of these pairings. So that is essentially how you purchase altcoins as well. Thanks, Leonardo. Appreciate that, man. Yeah, if you guys have enjoyed this so far, if you have some additional questions, definitely let me know. Keep those coming for sure. Gonna stick around for a little bit more time, absolutely, to take more questions and hang out with you guys. Like I said, I got a meeting tomorrow morning, so I want to get some sleep at a certain amount of time. But yeah, if you are new here, definitely hit the subscribe button. That would be really awesome. I would absolutely appreciate that. And if you enjoyed this at all, hit the like button too. Definitely helps to get the content out. So thank you so much for all your questions and everything so far at this point. It's been great talking to you guys for the past hour or so. Yeah, in some places you can buy altcoins with fiat, but for the most part, you're going to buy, the easiest way to buy an altcoin is to buy Bitcoin or buy Ethereum and then transfer that Bitcoin to an altcoin on exchange. That's kind of the typically the easiest way to, in my opinion, the easiest way to do things. Steve, do I allow tips? Yeah, why not? Why not, man? So how do I see the value of each coin in a day? Do you see the value of the coin in US or Bitcoin? So I look at both, quite frankly. I look at Andrew, I don't stream every day. It's usually a couple days a week, typically after work. So I don't stream every day, but a couple different times. But so do I value against Bitcoin and or the US dollars? I kind of do both. For me, there's kind of two ways to go about it. Are you making money in US dollars or your fiat currency? That's important, obviously. But also, are you making money against Bitcoin? Because if you're holding all these altcoins, but Bitcoin is rising more than them, like if we're looking at this market right now, if I'm holding NEO is down 5.7% in comparison to Bitcoin. So as of right now, it's better just to hold Bitcoin than it is to hold NEO. As of now, a month ago that wasn't necessarily the case, but as of now, as of today at least, it was better to hold Bitcoin than it was to hold NEO. So that's something to be aware of. But just for an example too, this isn't the case today, but if NEO was down 5.6%, but Bitcoin was up 10%, then NEO would still be up on a US dollar basis. You'd still be profitable, or you'd still be making money or gaining something with NEO, but it still would have been better to hold things with Bitcoin. So I try to look at both, profiting with US dollars and then also profiting against Bitcoin or against Ethereum, because ultimately I'm trying to increase both my stack with Bitcoin and with Ethereum, because those are kind of my two long-term holds of what I'm really, really I want to just stack as much money in Bitcoin. I want to stack as much money in Ethereum so that one day, I think it's going to happen, when Bitcoin might be $10,000 or $20,000 or $50,000, maybe 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, I'm going to have a fat stack of Bitcoin and a fat stack of Ethereum that is very valuable. And a lot of these altcoins and these ICOs are hopefully going to, in addition to continually investing my own money and dollar cost averaging things in, I'm able to increase with some other perspectives there as well. Taking a second to look into some of these questions here. So somebody mentioned as well, how do I find time to trade throughout the day? So quite frankly, not every day I trade or make trades. For the most part, I look at long-term holding, and holding things for the long term is one of the big things that I'll do and I'll leverage. If something's happening, if I see something, I'll check the markets pretty frequently. But if something's happening and I have a specific trade in mind, then I'll try to execute on that. But for the most part, it's more just keeping up with what's going on. And I'm not necessarily a big day trader where I'm making multiple trades on a daily basis and trying to play small percentage gains. I'm, for the most part, looking to buy and hold, and then the shorter term investments that I have a specific idea of how much profit I want to make, and when that profit comes in, I execute that trade and move on to try and find the next one. How much more room for growth Kendrick West is left in 2018? It's a good question. I don't know necessarily. Coinbase has asked China. Yeah, I think China has a lot to say about that. So we'll see what happens there. I think if China comes out and bans cryptocurrency exchanges, that's going to be a negative impact on the marketplace. All these crazy articles say from Bloomberg, from the Wall Street Journal, whatever, that happened for sure. But yeah, that's something that is, for me, I don't know necessarily how much higher it's going to go. Crypto's had an incredible run in the year of 2017. So are we due for a correction? Are we due for a major correction? Maybe. Are we due for a cooling off period? It's possible. David James, what's up, my man? So we'll see how those things move and how they progress forward. But I don't know if there's going to be a ton of room upwards left for growth, or actually no, in 2018. If we're talking about 2017, calendar year 2017, I don't know how much more room left we have upwards. I think a lot of things are going to follow Bitcoin, but for the most part, long term, I'm still very bullish. So I will we'll see there. James, thanks for joining, man. Good luck with the ICO tomorrow. Take care. What do I think about Zero X? I think Zero X is an interesting project. It's got a lot of support behind it. Let me see if I can pull up Zero X, at least their website, so we can take a look at that. And that's something too from the perspective of a lot of just kind of my theory, or one of the things I have from a perspective of what is happening right now. Zero X, decentralized exchange in a lot of respects, is a protocol for trading tokens. You can take a look. Where do we believe? I forget where the actual. So there we go. Portal. It's called Zero X Project /portal. And then what Zero X is trying to be, I would say, a more usable Ether Delta decentralized exchange, where you can go on here and I can switch an Ethereum token or a Zero X token, or if I want to maybe switch my OMG to 10X. I can go into, where's 10X? I probably passed it. The hell knows. There we go. There we go, 10X. So if I want to go in and sell my OMG and move that to 10X, I can do that on Zero X. And I think that's an interesting value proposition and a really good thing long term if they can execute on this, if they can make this a really usable platform. And I think there's a market for this as well. One of the big things, I've talked about it before, but I'll definitely talk about it again, is that I was talking about previously with the amount of time between when a company ICOs now and when it actually gets in the exchange, and also the regulation that are involved with exchanges now, like a Bittrex or like a Poloniex, or even these exchanges out in China that just delisted a bunch of recently ICO'd companies. With that being said, there's going to be, I think, a big push for decentralized exchanges, because if an exchange is decentralized, it's a lot harder to enforce regulation on it. If nobody owns it, if there's not a company that necessarily owns it, it's a lot harder to regulate it, right? So decentralized exchanges, I think, are going to become more and more prevalent. The one thing I would say is that, Ether Delta is a decentralized exchange, but it's not easy to use. So there's somewhat of like, I talked to a lot of people that, like I said, I invested in the Manetha ICO. I played around a little bit with Ether Delta here, but a lot of people that I've spoken to, or a lot of people that have reached out to me on Twitter, and they were basically like, hey, yeah, I really want to buy Manetha, but like, I don't understand like Ether Delta at all. Like, it doesn't work. I don't understand it. So if Zero X can make this like super functional and make this get a lot of cryptocurrency on there, make it a good tool to utilize, then I think that's something that long-term potential could be pretty positive for sure. Yeah, somebody mentioned decentralized exchanges will make tax time very difficult. I would certainly imagine, for sure. Yeah, that's Ether Delta. I mean, if everything is somewhat visible on the blockchain, but at the same time, like how there's questions beyond that. So we'll see. But yeah, it's definitely a loophole from a taxation perspective. Token looks like it has a huge bull wedge formant. I'll have to check that out for sure. And then David, we talked about Walton a little bit, but I wouldn't doubt if there's a little bit of a pullback. I mean, it's had a pretty steady rise, and a lot of times when a smaller coin like that has a rise, at least from what I've seen as of recently, not necessarily that I want it to go down. I don't own it, but if you own it, I hope it goes up and keeps going up. But with that, with that being said, I think Walton Coin might have a little bit of a pullback after its rise up. It's kind of been pumped up a little bit. ARK is another one that a couple different people have asked about, so I'll pull that. I'll pull up the homies up at ARK, and they've had a great run since May, going from worth less than $10 million market cap-wise to over $300 million. And even in September, when a lot of things were not doing super great, I mean, the past 7 days, ARK has crushed it. little bit of a tiny sell-off right now, but for the most part, ARK is crushing it. And from ARK's perspective, I think it's a really interesting platform. The way they're approaching things is, I think, positive for the space, and they're continuing to execute on the actual vision that they have. And I think if they can continue to execute, they might not necessarily be the next the next OMG, but I think a lot of people are really positive about ARK and kind of seeing it in action, and where that might go at this point. So we'll see. But I mean, if you've invested in ARK in the past month, good on you, because that's been a hell of a gain. I mean, up from $80 million market cap to $300 million. That's incredible. Somebody mentioned, is Ripple a good investment too? So for me, I'm not super interested in Ripple. There's a couple different reasons why. I have a good friend that's invested quite a bit in Ripple, made close to 6 figures in Ripple on a trade this year. But with Ripple, it's very different than any other cryptocurrency. It's a centralized. I mean, it's not necessarily super different, but at least from like a Bitcoin or an Ethereum, where it's a centralized cryptocurrency. It's really owned by Ripple. It's owned by a company. The company itself is, going after relationships with banking institutions, things like that. The one thing to note that's somewhat interesting is, and I don't know if anybody else caught this in the news, but it's a company, R3, is actually suing Ripple because R3 was actually in a partnership with Ripple. They're two cryptocurrency companies. R3 kind of, I believe they're the creators of Corda, which is an enterprise blockchain protocol consortium, whatever. But R3 had options to buy Ripple. I forget what price it was at. Let's see. I want to say it was like 3 cents. And now Ripple is at 21 cents. So they had R3 had an option to buy, or had options to buy Ripple at about like, I think it was like $100 million worth of Ripple that are now worth, or less than that. It was like $30 million worth of Ripple or something like that. And it's now worth like $1.something billion, and Ripple's saying that they didn't have a contract, and R3 is saying they did. And if they did have a contract, Ripple's going to owe them a lot of Ripples. So that's something that that's interesting. But yeah, for me personally, one of the things about Ripple that I don't necessarily love is that, well, number one, there's a total supply of 100 million Ripple, and 100 billion Ripple. If I'm not blind right now, 100 billion Ripple. They've only released 38 billion of them. So the supply of Ripple the circulating supply is a lot less than the actual supply. Ripple's holding the rest, so they can really determine a lot of what happens, and hence like them holding Ripple from R3. But outside of that too, the cryptocurrency community in general is kind of, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you guys on the line are anti-establishment. Some of you guys are very anti-banking, anti-government, whatever, libertarian, whatever you want to say. Ripple is kind of the opposite of that. Ripple's like, hey, we're gonna work with Goldman, we're gonna work with JP Morgan, we're gonna work with Morgan Stanley, we're gonna work with Wells Fargo, and we're gonna create a banking cryptocurrency that is going to allow for fast transactions between banks, things like that. So that is something that I don't know if that is going to take off. Obviously, it has a massive valuation right now, but we'll see. Somebody just mentioned OMG pumping hard, so we'll take a little look and we'll see if. Let's see from a USD perspective. Yeah, it's a nice little. In the past 2 hours, let's see, what do we got up here? 4% or so. From the bottom, we're looking at 5. So it's pretty close to all-time highs for OMG. And like I said, I'm a holder of OMG. I've been a holder of OMG. I'm going to continue to hold OMG. I like what I see there. Looks like there's a little bit of pushback around $12 from OMG's perspective. At least there was here. And then, I mean, it is what it is, but yeah, I'm going to continue holding OMG for the long term. obviously any movement here for me is paper gains until I sell, so it doesn't really make too much of a difference. But yeah, I think stacking 9mm said, yeah, not a fan of Ripple, better coins to invest in. I think it's a different type of investment in a lot of respects of what Ripple is trying to do versus a lot of other cryptocurrencies. And I mean, I work at a large tech company that's trying to do similar, not necessarily similar work, but, and I don't have any involvement with it. It's, completely separate team, separate division. But with that being said, I mean, there's a lot of large tech companies. You got Microsoft, you got IBM. They're all trying to build these enterprise blockchains as well. I told you. A little anti-establishment. There we go. So I am going to take, I think as far as things go, I'm going to take the rest of the night off, guys. Like I said, I have a meeting tomorrow morning, so I want to get a little bit of preparation in for that and make sure that I'm all prepared for it and get a good night of sleep. So sorry for cutting this short, but I really do appreciate everybody's time today. And again, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button. That would be very, very much appreciated. Any other videos or comments that you have, please let me know. Trying to make this channel as good as possible, trying to make the content better and better every single day and every single live stream. So I'm doing my best to be, as best of service to you as humanly possible. So if you ever have critiques of the videos, if you think I suck, whatever, tell me. I try to take everything in stride as much as possible and just get better every single video. So, that's what I'll do. Matt Woodward. Matt, so he said, thanks for not answering your question. I'll take a look, Matt. So sorry for missing it, man. But let's see. So you'll be the last question, bro. So Matt mentioned, where do I see ETH, Bitcoin heading in the next few weeks if we keep trading sideways? Would like to see some chart analysis there. Support levels, bounce from entry points. Okay, so from that perspective, Matt, if you're still on, I mean, for me personally, I see Bitcoin and ETH in the next few weeks. I mean, it's tough to know if we'll continue trading sideways, kind of what we're going to do there, how we're going to go, how we're going to go forward from that respect. For me personally, kind of what I'm looking at and what I'm thinking about, it depends. A lot of it is news driven, Matt. A lot of it seems to be news driven. So I am looking at what happens with China. I think if more bad news comes out about China, it's going to drive the price down further. Long-term perspective, I'm not a big TA guy, quite frankly. I don't have the expertise there, so apologies that I'm not going to be doing too much TA for you. There's quite frankly, there's better people out there that can actually give you kind of realistic, good, solid TA there. But outside of that, entry levels to look for, I think if we dip below $4,000 sustained Bitcoin-wise, I think that seems to be kind of a, it's not really trend analysis for me, but if we dip below $4,000 long term, I think it's going to, or for more than a day, I think that's going to kind of drop the price quite a bit, and will overall not be great. And I think if we go below 4,000, it's going to kind of drop things long term. But outside of that, I mean, I would look at around the $4,000 mark personally, depending upon where that goes. Seems like somewhat of a level of support. We haven't really dipped below that recently, or sustained anything below that. So take that for what it's worth. And then just kind of going back to the question there too. I quite frankly, I would say that the percentage of the likelihood of a bear market, it's probably stupid thing, but the likelihood of a bear market right now, I think, is more likely than us trading sideways or going up in the near future. For the most part, I think the run that cryptocurrencies had as of recently, there's eventually going to be a pullback. You've seen it in basically every jump from cryptocurrency when Bitcoin went from $2 to $32 and back, when it went from like $70 to like $100 or $200 and back, when it went from $200 to $1,000 and back. Now it's gone from like $1,000 to $4,000, and I think it might go back. So I don't know if it'll go back down to $1,000, but it could go, quite a bit lower. So I think we are somewhat, I would say, I would put the chance of a bear market in the next 3 months is over probably 60%, in my opinion. Do I necessarily want that? You got to deal with it one way or another. But Matt, if you're out there still watching, I hope that was, hope that was helpful for you. Sorry for not getting your question there as quickly as as you like there. My apologies, man, and thanks for watching as well. And everybody else, if you are new, like I said, hit the subscribe button. That'd be awesome. And thank you so much for your time. Like I said, try to get to all the questions, try to get to everything else, and try to be as helpful as possible as we go through this process. And appreciate everybody watching this and going through this with me. So thank you so much, guys. Have a fantastic night or day, wherever you're watching it from. Take it easy. Peace.